My name is Caroline. I'm 34 and I balance risk for a living. Last Tuesday, my daughter's third-grade teacher called and asked me to come in before pickup. She said it was about Mattie's journal. She said she was required to share it with me. I sat across from Ms. Reyes in a room that smelled like dry erase markers and someone's leftover lunch. She slid a lavender notebook across the table, the one with the peeling unicorn sticker on the front. I knew that notebook. Maddie carried it everywhere. I opened to the flagged page and read 3 lines in my 8-year-old's careful handwriting. Grandma says, "Soon I won't have to live with Mommy anymore." My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I read 2 more pages. Then I stood up, thanked Miss Reyes, and drove straight to my mother's house. I didn't call ahead. And what I found in the guest bedroom, I didn't even have a word for it yet. 48 hours later, I would. Welcome back to The Forgotten Daughter, where ordinary people meet impossible family choices and quietly choose themselves. If this kind of story finds you, you're exactly where you should be. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. The conference room had one window, blinds shut. Miss Reyes sat on my side of the table, not behind it. The kind of choice a careful person makes. Next to her was the school counselor, Dr. Harmon, a woman I'd only met once during orientation. "Mrs. Ingram, this isn't disciplinary," Miss Reyes said. "Mattie's a wonderful student." Dr. Harmon folded her hands. "We review journal entries periodically. It's part of our social-emotional curriculum." Ms. Reyes opened the lavender notebook to a tabbed page. The unicorn sticker caught the fluorescent light. "These entries span about 6 weeks," she said. "I flagged them because I'm required to." I pulled the notebook closer. Mattie's handwriting tilted right the way it always did when she was concentrating. The first entry was dated 5 weeks back. "Grandma has a curse-it game. We practice what to say if Mommy asks about weekends. Grandma says it's important." The misspellings made it worse somehow. Circuit. Important. This was an 8-year-old sounding out words she shouldn't have needed to know. I turned the page. Another entry. 3 weeks later. Grandma showed me my room. It has my name on the door. She says, "Soon I won't have to go back to Mommy's." I read that line twice. My throat tightened, but I kept my face still. 14 years in compliance taught me that much. Monsieur Reyes spoke quietly. "I'm required to share this. I'd want to know." "Thank you." I closed the notebook. "I'm taking her home today." Dr. Harmon mentioned next steps, counselor check-ins, resources. I heard every third word. The rest of me was already calculating how long this had been going on, how much Maddie had absorbed, and what exactly was waiting in that guest bedroom my daughter kept calling my room. The notebook sat between us, small and purple and full of a truth my mother thought she'd buried. I should explain who I am, not the version my family tells, the real one. I got pregnant at 25, married at 26, divorced at 31. In between, I finished my associate's degree at night while Maddie slept in a pack and play beside my desk, and I turned that into a compliance analyst position at a regional bank. The kind of job where you read contracts for a living and notice when the numbers don't match the story. My ex-husband Greg wasn't a villain. He was a decent man with a short attention span for hard things. We shared custody without lawyers because we could. He got Maddie every other Wednesday and 2 Saturdays a month. It worked fine. Then my father died. Dad, Robert Ingram, dropped dead of a cardiac arrest on a Sunday in April 2 years ago. He was 62. He'd mowed the lawn that morning. My mother found him in the recliner with the remote still in his hand. After the funeral, Mom was a husk, 62 years old, widowed overnight, rattling around that 4-bedroom house alone. My sister Diane and I took shifts staying with her. When Diane couldn't do weekends anymore, her 2 kids had travel soccer. I offered to bring Maddie over every other weekend. It felt like the right thing. Mom lit up around Maddie. She baked with her, taught her card games, called her my little sunshine, and Maddie loved going for a year. It was good, or it looked good. I was working 50-hour weeks and grateful someone in the family still had energy for my kid. I told myself my mother's grief made her generous, that Maddie was helping her heal. Maybe a busier mom is a worse mom. That's the lie I'd been swallowing for 18 months, and my mother had been feeding it to me 1 teaspoon at a time. There were signs. I just didn't want them to be signs. Maddie started coming home from Mom's quieter than she left. Not sad exactly, watchful. She'd study my face when I asked how her weekend was, like she was choosing from a script. Fine, she'd say. Then nothing. One Sunday, she asked why we didn't have a bigger house. I told her our apartment was plenty. She said, "Grandma says you could afford one if you tried." Another time I made spaghetti, her favorite, and she pushed it away. Grandma's sauce is from scratch. She says, "Yours is from a jar." It was from a jar, but Maddie had never cared before. The worst one came on a Tuesday night. Maddie was brushing her teeth and said, "Out of nowhere, when I grow up, I want to live with Grandma." I laughed. It stung, but I laughed. Kids say wild things. I told myself it was nothing. Then there was the group chat. Our family thread, Ingram family with a red heart emoji, had been quieter for months. I'd send a photo of Maddie at her school play and get a thumbs up from Diane 12 hours later. Mom wouldn't respond at all. I asked about Thanksgiving plans and got red receipts. No reply. I scrolled back through 3 months of messages. The pattern was clear. I was talking to a wall. Diane posted plenty, but always replying to messages I couldn't see. Inside jokes, plans referenced mid-sentence, like a conversation was happening somewhere else and bleeding through at the edges. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself my mother was grieving, and my sister was busy, and my daughter was just growing up. I was wrong on all 3 counts. The pressure started in February, 4 months before the journal. Diane called on a Thursday evening. I was giving Maddie a bath. Mom says you cancelled last weekend. I hadn't cancelled. Maddie had a stomach bug. I'd texted Mom with a photo of the thermometer. 101.4. Mom never replied. She's upset, Care. Diane said she lives for those weekends. I explained the fever. Diane sighed like I'd told her a long, boring story. You could have dropped her off anyway. Mom has Tylenol. Then came Aunt Brenda, Mom's younger sister. She called the following Sunday, which she never does. Your mother's heartbroken, Caroline, after everything she's been through, losing Robert, being alone in that house. You're going to take the one thing that gives her joy. I'm not taking anything. Maddie was sick. Margaret says, "You've been pulling back." That was the first time I heard the narrative out loud. Not that Maddie had a fever. Not that I made a reasonable parenting call. The story was Caroline is pulling back. Caroline is cold. Caroline doesn't appreciate her mother. The next week, Mom called. Her voice was soft, practiced. She asked how Maddie was. She asked about my job. Then right before hanging up, she said it. She'd be better off here with me. You work so much, sweetheart. She said it like it was a kindness, like she was offering to carry a heavy bag. And part of me, the part that was exhausted and doubting myself, almost nodded. I didn't, but I didn't push back either. I just said, "She's fine, Mom," and changed the subject. That was my mistake. I treated it like a comment. It was a mission statement. That night, the night after the school meeting, I waited until Maddie fell asleep. I sat at the kitchen table with the lavender notebook and a glass of water I didn't touch. The unicorn sticker was peeling at the corner. Maddie had tried to re-stick it with a piece of tape that was already coming loose. I started from the first page and read every entry. Not like a mother this time. Like an auditor. September 14th. Grandma says Mommy forgets to pick me up sometimes. I don't remember that. But Grandma says I was little. That never happened. Not once. October 2nd. Grandma says I have a room here now. She says it's mine forever. She made a board with my name. October 19th. We play the surset game again. I tell Grandma what Mommy says about weekends, and Grandma writes it down. She says it's for keeping me safe. Writes it down. My mother was documenting my conversations through my child. November 7th. The entry that made me set the notebook down and press my palms against the table until my knuckles went white. Grandma showed me a book with pictures. It's about our family. Mommy isn't in a lot of the pictures. Grandma says that's because Mommy was busy, but I look happy in them. A book with pictures where Mommy isn't there, where Maddie looks happy without me. I flipped back through the entries and mapped them against the calendar on my fridge. Every entry followed a weekend at Mom's. The language escalated each time from confused to convinced. I could see my daughter's trust shifting in real time, entry by entry, weekend by weekend. I hadn't slept by the time the coffee maker clicked on at 6. By 7, I was in the car. The drive to Mom's house took 27 minutes. I'd made it 1,000 times growing up. Past the Dairy Queen on Route 12, left at the stone church, down Maple until the houses got bigger and the sidewalks disappeared. Mom's car wasn't in the driveway. Tuesday morning, she'd be at her women's Bible study until 10 o'clock. The front door was unlocked. It always was. Dad used to joke that the only thing worth stealing was Mom's casserole recipe. I walked past the living room, past the kitchen where Mattie's cereal bowl sat in the dish rack, already washed and put away, past the den where Dad's recliner still wore the dent of his body. The guest bedroom door was closed. It had never been closed before. I opened it. The room wasn't a guest room anymore. A wooden nameplate hung on the wall above a twin bed dressed in yellow gingham. Maddie in hand painted block letters. The closet was open. Inside, 12 outfits sized for an 8-year-old folded and organized by color. New shoes on the floor, a toothbrush in a cup on the nightstand. On the bookshelf, a cloth-covered album. I picked it up. The cover read in my mother's careful cursive, "Our Family, a memory book for Maddie." I opened it. The first page was a photo of Dad holding newborn Maddie at the hospital. Next page, Dad and Mom and Maddie at Easter. Then Mom and Maddie baking cookies. Page after page. 20, 30 photos. And in fewer than half of them was I anywhere visible. The ones where I'd been standing next to Maddie had been cropped. My elbow in one, my shadow in another, but my face gone. The last page was blank, except for a handwritten label. Moving Day. Below the album, a manila folder. I opened it. A business card from a family law attorney in Greenville. 2 pages of printed notes. Grandparents' visitation rights, state statutes, a highlighted paragraph about guardianship petitions, and a printout of enrollment paperwork for Elmwood Elementary, the school 3 blocks from my mother's house. I heard the garage door open. Mom came in through the kitchen. I heard her keys hit the counter, then the rustle of a grocery bag. Her footsteps paused at the hallway. Caroline. She appeared in the doorway of Mattie's room. That's what it was now, wasn't it? Mattie's room. Her face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, then calculation, then offense. "You're going through my house. I read Mattie's journal today." I kept my voice flat. Compliance voice, the one I use when a loan officer's numbers don't add up. And I need them to know I've noticed. Mom crossed her arms. "What journal?" "The one her teacher flagged. The one where Maddie writes about the secret game. Where you tell her what to say when I ask about weekends." Something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt. Recognition. Like she'd rehearsed this conversation and was annoyed it came early. "Everything I do is for that child." She said, "You're at work 60 hours a week. She needs stability. She has stability. She has a babysitter and a microwave dinner." I let that one land. She wanted me to flinch. I didn't. "Mom, there's a nameplate on the wall. There's a closet full of clothes. There's a folder with a lawyer's card and school enrollment forms for Elmwood." Her chin lifted. "A grandmother has rights. A grandmother has limits." She stepped closer. Her voice dropped to that low, careful register she used when she wanted you to feel small. After everything I've given up for this family, after I buried your father alone while you filed spreadsheets, you're going to stand in my house and lecture me. I picked up the memory book. I picked up the manila folder. I walked past her without touching her. I'm taking Maddie home, I said. We're done for now. She didn't follow me. Maddie was in the backyard, sitting cross-legged in the grass with Mrs. Patterson's golden retriever. She looked up when I came through the screen door, and her face did that thing it had been doing for months. A quick scan, reading the room before she committed to an expression. Hey, Bug, grab your backpack. We're heading home. But it's not pickup time. I know, change of plans. She stood slowly, brushed grass off her knees. At the back door, she stopped and looked toward the house like she was listening for something. Is Grandma mad? Grandma and I had a talk, that's all. In the car, she buckled herself in and held her backpack against her chest like a shield. We were 2 miles from Mom's house before she spoke. Did I get Grandma in trouble? I looked at her in the rearview mirror, 8 years old. Brown hair and a ponytail she'd done herself. Eyes that were doing math I shouldn't have made her do. No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong because I wrote the stuff in my journal. Ms. Reyes reads them sometimes. I know. Grandma said not to write about the game. Her voice got smaller. But it's a writing journal. You're supposed to write what's real. I pulled into a gas station parking lot, turned around in my seat, looked at her. Maddie, listen to me. You never have to keep secrets from me. Not from Grandma. Not from anyone. Never. She nodded then quietly. Can I still see Grandma? I didn't answer right away. I wanted to say something perfect. Something that would make this clean and simple. But nothing about this was clean or simple. We'll figure it out, I said. But right now, you and me, we're going home. She hugged her backpack tighter. I pulled back onto the road. That evening, I put Maddie to bed early. She fell asleep in 11 minutes, faster than she had in months. I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and a pen. Old habit. When something at work doesn't make sense, I write it down. I draw lines between things. I look for the pattern the numbers are trying to hide. I wrote a timeline. 18 months of every other weekends. When Matty started coming home quiet. When the group chat went cold. When Mom first said she'd be better off. When Diane started calling me dramatic. When Aunt Brenda made her Sunday appeal. The timeline looked like a campaign because it was won. The next morning, I called Dr. Harmon at school. She was careful, professional careful, the way people are when they know something might become a legal record. We've seen a shift in Maddie over the past few months, she said. Withdrawal, some anxiety around pickup days. She asked the counselor once if moms can lose their kids. That sentence sat in my stomach like a stone. She asked if moms can lose their kids in October. We noted it, but without more context. She paused. The journal entries gave us context. I told Dr. Harmon I was suspending the weekend arrangement. She said that was a parenting decision, not a school one, but that she supported Maddie having consistency. After I hung up, I looked at the legal pad, the timeline, the entries, the manila folder I'd carried out of Mom's house like evidence because that's what it was. I wasn't being paranoid. I wasn't overreacting. My mother had spent 18 months quietly reshaping my daughter's reality, and the only person who'd told the truth about it was an 8-year-old with a unicorn notebook and a stubborn belief that journals are for writing what's real. Mom didn't call me. She called everyone else. Within 48 hours, I got 7 phone calls, 3 texts, and a voicemail from a cousin I hadn't spoken to since Dad's funeral. The narrative was set. Caroline is punishing her grieving mother. Caroline is keeping Maddie away over nothing. Caroline has always been the difficult one. Diane called first. Mom's been crying for 2 days straight. Did she tell you why I came over? She said you barged in and accused her of things. She said you took Maddie without warning. Did she tell you about the bedroom, the lawyer's card, the school enrollment? Silence. Then she's 64, Caroline. She's lonely. You're making this into something it isn't. Aunt Brenda was worse. She left a voicemail that started with honey and ended with a threat. If you don't let that woman see her grandchild, this family will never forgive you. The cousin Travis, Brenda's son, texted, "Heard you're trying to cut Grandma Marg out. Pretty harsh move after Uncle Rob." Pretty harsh move after Uncle Rob. Like my father's death was a hall pass for my mother's behavior. I sat with my phone on the counter and watched the messages pile up. Every one of them told the same story. Mom's story. The one where she was the victim and I was the villain, and Maddie was a prize I was selfishly hoarding. Nobody asked what Maddie had written. Nobody asked about the journal. Nobody asked about the room. She'd be better off here with me. That line, my mother's line, was running through every conversation like a thread. Diane said a version of it. Brenda implied it. Travis assumed it. The only people who'd actually looked at the evidence were a third-grade teacher and a school counselor. Everyone else was taking my mother's word. Maddie didn't bring it up on her own. It came out sideways, the way things do with kids. We were building a Lego castle on the living room floor. Her idea, her rules. When she said, "Grandma told me you forgot to pick me up once when I was little." That never happened, Maddie. She said, "I cried. I have never forgotten to pick you up. Not once." She pressed a yellow brick into the wall. Didn't look at me. She said you were going to send me to a different school because you didn't want to drive. That's not true either. She said a lot of things. Maddie's voice went flat. Not angry. Tired. 8 years old and tired of carrying someone else's version of the truth. I set down my brick. What else did she say? Over the next 20 minutes, between Lego towers and a juice box, Maddie told me things that made my chest hurt. That Grandma said Caroline was too stressed to be a good mommy. That Grandma showed Maddie the guest room and said, "When you're ready, this is yours." That Grandma made her practice answers for when I asked about weekends. Specific lines rehearsed like a school play. She said, "If I told you, you'd be mad and I'd have to stop visiting." That was the mechanism. Fear. My daughter had been told that honesty would cost her something she loved. "Maddie, I will never punish you for telling me the truth." She leaned against my arm, didn't say anything, just breathed. "If you've ever felt like you were going crazy for trusting your own gut about your kid, you weren't crazy. You were right. Sit with me a little longer. Comment if you've been there." The group chat was the thing I almost missed. Maddie had a tablet, a hand-me-down iPad from Greg with a cracked screen and a rubber case shaped like a dinosaur. She used it for math games and YouTube Kids. I'd never thought to check the messages, but Tuesday evening, while she was in the bath, the tablet chimed. I glanced at the screen, a notification from a group text thread I'd never seen before. The thread was called Family Planning. 4 members, Mom, Diane, Brenda, and Maddie's tablet, which was logged into Mom's old Apple ID. I opened it. 214 messages. The oldest one was from January. "Mom." Caroline canned again. "She's using Maddie's fever as an excuse. We need to document this. Diane, I'll call her Thursday. Keep it casual." Mom. 2 weeks later. Em asked when she can move in. I told her soon. We need to get the enrollment sorted before spring. Diane, have you talked to the lawyer yet? Mom. Thursday appointment. Brenda, what if Caroline finds out? Mom, she won't. She doesn't check anything. She's too busy with work. I scrolled. Message after message. Plans for the bedroom renovation. Updates on the lawyer consultation. Diane reporting back after phone calls with me. Word for word what I'd said framed as evidence of instability. Screenshots of my texts taken out of context. And this from Mom sent 3 days before Miss Reyes called me in. She'll thank me one day. Maddie will too. I set the tablet down. My hands were steady. My jaw was not. 214 messages. 18 months. 3 people who sat across from me at Thanksgiving and smiled while coordinating a plan to take my daughter. The birthday party was in 10 days. I called Diane the next day. I needed to hear it in her voice. "Hey, Care, how's everything?" I could hear her kids in the background. Cartoons, normal Wednesday noise. "I've been thinking about Mom's birthday," I said. "Are you handling the cake or should I?" "Oh, Mom already ordered it. The bakery on Pine Street. She seems really excited about having everyone together." She is a pause. "She's hoping you'll bring Maddie. It would mean a lot." "Sure. Has the guest room been redone?" "Last time I was there, it looked different." The silence lasted 4 seconds. I counted. "What do you mean different?" "The nameplate, the clothes, the enrollment papers for Elmwood." Diane's breath caught. A small, sharp intake. The sound of someone realizing they've been outflanked. "Mom she keeps a few things there for when Maddie visits. It's not." "You're making it sound." "You knew about the room. I mean, yeah, she showed me, but it's just grandma stuff." "And the lawyer?" Longer silence. The cartoons in the background suddenly sounded very loud. Mom talked to someone for advice. That doesn't mean, and the group chat, the one called Family Planning. 214 messages where you reported back everything I said. Nothing. "Diane, you told her word for word what I said about Mattie's fever. You called it evidence. That's not, I didn't mean it like that." "What did you mean?" She didn't answer the question. Instead, "Caroline, you've always blown things out of proportion. Mom is lonely. She lost Dad. She wants to be close to her granddaughter." "That's it. Then why does she have a guardianship file?" The call ended. Diane hung up. I stared at my phone for 10 seconds, then set it face down on the counter and went to make Mattie's lunch. I spread everything on the kitchen table that Saturday morning. The legal pad with the timeline, the lavender notebook, the screenshots I'd taken of the group chat before Mom could delete the thread, printouts of the enrollment paperwork, a photo I'd taken of the nameplate on the wall. I lined them up chronologically, the way I'd organize a compliance audit, source document, supporting evidence, date of occurrence, pattern indicator. January, Mom begins documenting my cancellations. Diane starts reporting my phone calls. February, Mom consults a family law attorney. Guest room renovation begins. March, the memory book appears. Mattie's journal entries start. April, Elmwood enrollment paperwork printed. The secret game begins. Coaching Maddie on what to say. May 214 messages, a full campaign. June, Ms. Reyes calls me in 6 months. My mother had run a 6-month operation to replace me as Mattie's primary parent, and she'd recruited my sister and my aunt as staff. I went back to the journal, the entry from November. Grandma says, "Soon I won't have to live with Mommy anymore." I cross-referenced it with the chat. Same week, Mom had texted Diane. "Enrollment deadline is December 15th. We need to move." Move. Like this was a real estate transaction. I closed the notebook, ran my fingers over the unicorn sticker one more time. Here's the thing about working in compliance. You learn that people rarely do one dishonest thing. If the numbers are wrong in one column, they're wrong in 3. If someone's hiding something in the front office, there's more in the back. My mother hadn't just crossed a line, she'd built a road. And in 10 days at her 65th birthday party, she was planning to use the whole family as an audience to finish what she'd started. I looked at the memory book one more time that evening. The cloth cover was sage green, hand-stitched binding. Mom had always been good with a needle. On the front, in gold embossed letters, she'd pressed herself. Our family. I turned the pages slowly. Page 1. Dad holding Maddie at the hospital. Mom standing beside him. I'd taken that photo. My hand was in the lower corner holding the blanket steady. Page 4. Mattie's first birthday. The original picture had 6 people in it. In Mom's version, there were 4. My face and Greg's had been cut away. The cake I'd made, chocolate with messy pink frosting, was still visible. My daughter was eating a cake I'd baked in a photo I'd been removed from. Page 12. Christmas at Mom's house. A wide shot. You could see the edge of my red sweater on the left margin sliced clean. The caption read, Mattie's first Christmas at her real home. Her real home. Page 19. A drawing Mattie had made at Mom's. A house with 4 windows and a big tree. 2 stick figures in the yard. One tall with grey hair, one small with brown. The caption, Mattie drew her family. 2 figures, not 3. The last filled page had a photo of the guest bedroom. Staged neat. The yellow gingham bedspread smooth. No caption, just a date circled in red. December 15th, the enrollment deadline. And below it, a blank page. 1 line in my mother's handwriting. Moving day, TBD. I closed the book, set it on the table, pressed my palms flat until my breathing slowed. In Dad's old baby book for me, the one he'd kept in his desk, he'd written on the first page, Trust your mother. 3 words, no agenda behind them, just a father who meant it. She already has a mother. Pat Olson's office was above a dry cleaner on 2nd Street. She had a desk covered in case files and a framed needlepoint on the wall that read, Due process, not drama. I liked her immediately. I laid everything out. The journal, the screenshots, the photos, the enrollment forms, the attorney's card from Mom's folder. Pat read for 12 minutes without speaking. Then she set her glasses on her desk. Your mother's guardianship play is dead on arrival, she said. Post Roxil, a fit parent's decision about visitation is presumptively correct. Courts don't override that for a grandmother who's lonely. What about the lawyer she consulted? That attorney probably told her the same thing. She might pursue grandparent visitation, but in this state, the burden's on her to prove that cutting contact harms the child. Based on what Mattie wrote, she tapped the notebook. Contact is what's causing harm. Pat outlined the steps. Formalize sole custody with Greg's written agreement. Easy, since Greg and I were cooperative. File a protective order if needed. Set terms for any future contact. Supervised, scheduled, documented. What about the trust? I asked. Dad's estate was modest, but real. The house, a savings account, and a 529 education fund for Maddie. I was the sole trustee. Mom had been asking about the fund since the funeral, hinting that she should help manage it. Add an independent co-trustee, Pat said. A bank or a CPA takes it completely off the table. Nobody can accuse you of withholding, and nobody can touch it without oversight. I signed a retainer. $350. Walking to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. I don't need to win an argument. I need a record. The birthday party was in 8 days. I let them think I was coming to make peace. Diane texted on Monday. Mom's really hoping Saturday goes well. She wants the family together. I replied, I'll be there. Brenda called Tuesday. Will you bring Maddie? It would make your mother's whole year. I'm still figuring out the details, I said. What I didn't say, Maddie wouldn't be there. What I didn't say, I'd already made arrangements. Greg, solid, dependable, attention span of a goldfish. Greg had read the journal entries the weekend before. I'd driven to his apartment and handed him the notebook without explanation. He read it in his kitchen standing up. He didn't say much. Greg never does when something really hits him. He closed the notebook, slid it back across the counter and said, What do you need? I need you to take Maddie on Saturday. All day. Done. She can't go to Mom's. Not for any reason. I said, Done. Caroline. It was the most useful sentence my ex-husband had spoken in 3 years. I spent the rest of the week preparing, not rehearsing. I wasn't going to give a speech. I was going to state facts. I organized the documents, a copy of the chat screenshots, a copy of the enrollment papers, a copy of the journal entry. Just the one line, the one that mattered. I put them in a manila envelope. Thin, light, heavier than anything I'd ever carried. Mom called Thursday. Her voice was warm, controlled. "I'm so glad you're coming, sweetheart. I've been thinking, maybe we can sit down and talk. Just us." "Sure, Mom. We can talk. And you'll bring Maddie. I'll see you Saturday." I never answered her question. She heard what she wanted to hear. That was her weakness. It always had been. Wednesday morning, Pat Olson's office. I signed 3 documents. The first was a joint custody clarification with Greg's notarized agreement, confirming me as primary custodial parent, him as cooperative co-parent. No third-party authority over Mattie's schooling, medical care, or living arrangements. The second was the co-Rusty addition for Dad's 529 fund, a local CPA named Ruth Westfall, recommended by Pat. No connection to my family. From that point forward, any distribution from the trust required 2 signatures, mine and Ruth's, not Mom's, not anyone else's. The third was a formal letter to my mother's family law attorney in Greenville, the one whose card I'd found in the manila folder. Pat had drafted it, professional, measured. It stated that any pursuit of grandparent visitation or guardianship would be opposed with full documentation of the alienation pattern, including the child's own written testimony and evidence of coaching. "She'll probably never file," Pat said. "But if she does, this letter becomes Exhibit A in her attorney's file. No lawyer wants to walk into court against a documented timeline and a kid's journal." I paid the invoice, $620 total. Every cent felt like armor. On the drive home, I called Dr. Harmon at school, asked about therapists who specialize in children who've experienced loyalty conflicts. "Parental alienation," Dr. Harmon said gently. "Yes, she gave me 2 names. I called the first one that afternoon and booked Maddie's first session for the following Tuesday. I went home, made Maddie's favorite dinner, spaghetti with sauce from a jar, because that's what we eat." Maddie slurped a noodle and grinned. "This is the best dinner," she said. "It's from a jar." "I know. I like jars." I didn't tell her anything about Saturday. She didn't need to carry that. The first thing I noticed was the sleeping without the every other weekend trips. Maddie started sleeping through the night. 7 days in a row, then 10, then 2 full weeks, without a single 3:00 a.m. visit to my bed. She stopped flinching at the word grandma. She stopped scanning my face before answering questions. One morning she came downstairs and said, "Can we paint my room blue?" Meaning her room, our apartment, the one she'd been sleeping in since she was 2. The small things added up. She drew a picture at school, a house with a red door and 2 figures inside. The tall one had brown hair. The small one had a ponytail at the bottom in careful letters. My family, 2 figures, same number as the one in Mom's memory book, but these 2 were the right 2. On Thursday evening, we were reading before bed. Maddie put her book down and said very quietly, "At Grandma's, I had to be sad about you." "What do you mean?" "Grandma would say things about you, and then she'd hug me like I was supposed to cry. So I did. I held her. I didn't say anything for a long time. You don't have to be sad about me, I said finally. I'm right here. I know. She picked her book back up. I like being home. That was Wednesday. The birthday party was in 3 days. This next part is where everything turned. If this story is hitting home, hit subscribe so the next one finds you. Friday night, Maddie was at Greg's. I was packing the manila envelope. My phone buzzed. A group text notification. The original family chat. Ingram family with the red heart. Diane had accidentally added me to a reply thread that was meant for the other chat. The message read, "If she doesn't cooperate tomorrow, we bring it up in front of everyone. Mom's been suffering in silence and the family deserves to know the truth." I scrolled up. Diane had been mid-con conversation with Brenda. Brenda. What if she makes a scene? Diane. She won't. Caroline avoids conflict. She'll fold. Brenda. And if she doesn't, Diane. Then Mom tells everyone what's been going on. That Caroline's been keeping Maddie away. That she's unstable. That she's refusing to let a grieving grandmother see her grandchild. Brenda, will people believe it? Diane, everyone already does. Mom's message sent 40 minutes later. Tomorrow, I'll be calm. I'll say my piece, and then the family will decide. The family will decide. As if my daughter's custody was a vote. I took screenshots, saved them, added them to the envelope. Diane texted me separately at 10:15. So excited for tomorrow. It's going to be a great day. Mom is so happy you're coming. I stared at the two conversations side by side. One face for me, another for the chat. I thought about all the Sunday dinners where Diane had hugged me and asked about my week while typing updates to Mom under the table. I set my phone on the nightstand, turned off the light. Tomorrow wasn't going to be the day they planned, but they didn't know that yet. I went to Mom's house one last time before Saturday, just to return a casserole dish I'd had since Easter. The front door was open. The screen door wasn't latched. I let myself in and found her in the den sitting in Dad's recliner. She was wearing his cardigan, the brown one with the elbow patches. It swallowed her. She'd lost weight since the funeral, and the cardigan hung off her shoulders like it was waiting for someone bigger to come home and fill it. She was holding a photo. Dad and her on their wedding day, 1984. She wasn't crying. She was just looking at it. The way you look at something you've memorized but can't stop checking. Mom, she startled, closed the photo against her chest. I brought back the dish, I said. I set it on the counter. Thank you. Her voice was thin. Sit down. I sat on the arm of the couch. Not close, not far. I miss him, Caroline. Every single day, I know. He would have known what to do. He always did. I let the silence breathe. In that moment, she was just a widow sitting in her dead husband's chair, drowning in a sweater that smelled like his aftershave. That part was real. The grief was real. Then she looked up. Her eyes sharpened. If your father were alive, he'd tell you that a child belongs with family, not in some apartment with a babysitter. I stood. You took his house, she said. You took control of his money. You won't take her too. There it was under the grief. The real engine. Dad had trusted me with the estate. He'd named me trustee, not her, and she'd never forgiven it. I'll see you Saturday, Mom. I left the casserole dish on the counter. I drove home in silence. No radio, no podcast, just the sound of the road and my own thinking. Here's what I could have done. I could have called Pat and told her to enforce the trust provisions. The house Mom lived in was part of Dad's estate. Technically, as trustee, I controlled the terms. I could have made her life very uncomfortable very quickly. I could have forwarded the group chat screenshots to every person on the guest list for Saturday. Let the evidence do the screaming, humiliate her before she humiliated me. I could have skipped the party entirely, let her spin whatever story she wanted, walked away clean. But none of those were right. Evicting a 64-year-old widow from her home wasn't justice. It was cruelty. Wearing a legal costume, blasting the screenshots to the whole family before she'd even sat down was her move, not mine. And walking away without facing it meant Maddie's truth stayed in a notebook, unspoken, while Mom's version hardened into fact. I needed something in between, something that was honest without being destructive, something that protected Maddie without obliterating Margaret. I'm not here to ruin her. I'm here to stop her. That became my compass. Stop the behavior. Protect the child. Let the truth land where it lands. Don't swing harder than necessary. Pat had asked me what outcome I wanted. I told her I want Maddie safe, contact on my terms, and my mother to understand that this is over. That's 3 things, Pat said. Most clients want 5. I'm a minimalist. Saturday morning arrived grey and cool. I put on a navy blouse, khakis, and flat shoes. No armor, no war paint. Just clothes for a woman going to her mother's birthday party to tell the truth. I picked up the manila envelope, thin, light, heavy. Mom's street was lined with cars, a silver minivan, Diane's, a tan Buick, Brenda's, 3 others I recognized from family reunions, and a white sedan I didn't know. Probably one of Mom's church friends. I parked at the end of the block, sat in the car for 2 minutes. The lavender notebook was in my bag. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat. I picked it up, slid it into my purse next to the notebook, and got out. The front yard was decorated, balloons tied to the mailbox, silver and white, 65, printed in cursive. A banner across the porch. Happy birthday, Margaret. Someone had set up a folding table with a white tablecloth near the rose bushes. I could hear voices inside. Laughter, the clink of glasses, the smell of brisket from the backyard smoker. Aunt Brenda opened the door. She was wearing a coral blouse and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Caroline, we were wondering when you'd get here. She looked past me. Where's Maddie? Mattie's with her dad today. The smile thinned. Your mother's going to be disappointed. I know. Inside the living room was full. 12, maybe 15 people. Cousins, neighbors, Mom's Bible study group. Diane stood near the kitchen with a glass of wine. Mid-laugh about something. She saw me and her face rearranged itself into pleasant surprise. Care. Hey. I hugged her. She hugged me back. The last hug we'd share for a long time, though neither of us knew it yet. Mom was in the dining room arranging plates. She wore a cream-colored dress and the pearl earrings Dad had given her on their 30th anniversary. She looked up. Sweetheart, she smiled. Where's my Maddie? I set my purse on the sideboard. We need to talk, Mom. She tapped a glass with a butter knife. The room went quiet. Actually, she said, I have something to say first. She stood at the head of the dining table with her glass raised. 15 people turned toward her. Thank you all for being here, she said. 65 years. I never thought I'd celebrate this one alone. She paused. Let the weight of it settle. Losing Robert changed everything. But the one bright spot, the one thing that kept me going was my granddaughter. A murmur of sympathy. Brenda nodded. A neighbor put her hand over her heart. I've tried to be a good grandmother. Mom continued. I've opened my home. I've given my time. I've loved that little girl like she was my own. Diane glanced at me. A quick check, making sure I was softening. But lately, Mom's voice cracked. Practiced or real, I couldn't tell anymore. Lately, I've been kept from her, and I don't understand why. She looked at me. The whole room looked at me. Caroline, I'm not saying this to embarrass you. I'm saying it because this family deserves the truth. I've been a devoted grandmother, and for the past 3 weeks, I haven't been allowed to see Maddie. Not a phone call, not a visit. Brenda leaned forward. That's not right. A cousin I barely knew shook her head. All I've ever wanted, Mom said, is what's best for that child. She set down her glass. Her hands were steady. Her eyes were wet. She'd be better off here with me. I've always believed that, and I think if Robert were here, he'd agree. The room exhaled, sympathetic nods. An aunt wiped her eye. Diane watched me with an expression that said, Your move. Fold. I didn't fold. I reached into my purse and placed the lavender notebook on the table. Maddie wrote something, I said. Her teacher had to call me in. The notebook sat on the white tablecloth between the dinner plates. Purple cover, unicorn sticker. It looked small and absurd next to the crystal glasses and the birthday cake. Nobody spoke. Maddie keeps a journal for school. I said her teacher, Miss Reyes, reads them as part of the social-emotional curriculum. 3 weeks ago, she flagged several entries and called me in. She's a mandated reporter. She was required to. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The entries describe what happens during weekends at Mom's house. Maddie writes about something she calls the secret game, where Mom coaches her on what to say when I ask about her weekends. She writes about being told that I'm too busy to be a good mother, that I forgot to pick her up once, that I was going to send her away. That's not Mom started. I'm not finished. The room was absolutely still. I could hear the smoker hissing in the backyard. Someone's phone buzzed in a purse. Nobody reached for it. She writes about a room at Mom's house, a room with her name on the wall, new clothes in the closet, and a bookshelf with a photo album that Mom made, one where I've been cut out of most of the pictures. I looked at my mother. She was standing very straight, her hands gripping the back of a dining chair. Maddie also writes this. I opened the notebook to the tabbed page. I didn't read the whole entry, just one line, the one that mattered. Grandma says, "Soon I won't have to live with Mommy anymore." I set the notebook back down and let the sentence sit in the room like a third person at every table. Brenda's hand went to her mouth. The cousin who'd been shaking her head earlier stopped shaking it. Diane sat down her wine glass very carefully, like she was afraid it would shatter. I drove to Mom's house after the school meeting. I said, "The guest bedroom isn't a guest bedroom anymore. There's a twin bed with a yellow gingham spread, a nameplate that says Maddie, 12 outfits in the closet sized for an 8-year-old, a toothbrush on the nightstand." I took a breath, kept going. On the shelf, there's a cloth-covered album called Our Family, a memory book for Maddie. 30 pages of photos. In more than half of them, I've been cropped out. The last page is blank. It says, Moving Day. Mom's grip on the chair tightened. Her knuckles were white. Below the album, a manila folder. Inside, a business card from a family law attorney. Printed notes on grandparent visitation rights and guardianship petitions, and enrollment paperwork for Elmwood Elementary, the school 3 blocks from this house. I reached into my purse, took out the manila envelope, placed it on the table next to the notebook. I also found a group chat. 214 messages between Mom Diane and Aunt Brenda on Mattie's logged into Mom's old Apple ID. 18 months of coordination reports on my phone calls taken out of context. Plans for the bedroom. Updates on the lawyer. Screenshots of my texts. I looked at Diane. She stared at the tablecloth. I didn't make any of this up. She wrote it down. I straightened. Let the silence hold. Those are the facts. You can read the journal yourselves. Nobody reached for it. Mom moved first. She let go of the chair and stepped toward me, and her face went through something I'd never seen before. A rapid collapse of performance into fury. "How dare you?" Her voice shook. "How dare you come into my home on my birthday and do this?" I didn't step back. I didn't raise my voice. "I came because you planned to do it to me." Diane's text said, "If she doesn't cooperate, we bring it up in front of everyone. I just brought different evidence after everything I've been through. After I buried your father while you filed paperwork, Dad died 2 years ago, Mom. I miss him every day, but his death doesn't give you the right to take my daughter." She started crying. Not quiet tears, the gasping, shuddering kind that fills a room and demands a response. Brenda moved toward her. Mom held up a hand. "I'll get a lawyer," she said. "A real one. I have rights." "You consulted one already, and I've consulted one too." I kept my voice level. Post-Roxel, a fit parent's decision on visitation is presumptively correct. Your guardianship petition has no legal basis. The trust now has an independent co-rustee, and any future contact with Maddie will be supervised, scheduled, and on my terms. Mom stared at me, her mouth opened. Nothing came out. "I'm not doing this to punish you," I said. "I'm doing this because an 8-year-old girl was afraid to tell her mother the truth, because you taught her that honesty had a price." I picked up the notebook. I picked up the envelope. She already has a mother. I didn't wait for a response. I walked toward the door. Behind me, The room rearranged itself. Great Aunt Phyllis, 81, barely spoke at family gatherings, cleared her throat. "Margaret, is this true? The album? The enrollment papers?" Mom didn't answer. She was crying into Brenda's shoulder. Brenda's face had gone pale. "Because if it's true," Phyllis continued, "that's not grandmothering. That's something else entirely." Diane picked up her purse. She didn't look at anyone. She walked through the kitchen and out the back door. The screen door slapped shut behind her. Nobody followed her. A neighbor, Mrs. Chen from across the street, stood and put on her jacket. "I think I should go," she said to no one in particular. Two of Mom's Bible study friends followed her out. The cake sat untouched. Silver and white candles. 65 in buttercream. The brisket was probably burning in the backyard. I stopped at the front door, turned around. "Mom, you're not losing the house. I'm not revoking your life estate. I'm not cutting you out of the trust. And if you do the work, real work, with a family therapist, supervised and documented, there may be a path back to a relationship with Maddie." She looked up from Brenda's shoulder. "But that path goes through me," I said. "Not around me. Never around me again." I walked out down the porch steps, past the silver balloons, past the Happy Birthday Margaret banner that was already curling at one corner. In the car, I sat for 30 seconds. My hands were steady. My heart was not, but my hands were steady, and that was enough. I called Greg. "How's Maddie?" "She's great. We made pancakes." She put chocolate chips in the shape of a smiley face. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." I started the car and pulled away from my mother's street. The following Monday, Pat filed the formal custody clarification. Greg signed without hesitation. The co-Rusty arrangement went into effect by Wednesday. Mom didn't call. Not Monday. Not Tuesday. Not for 11 days. The group chat. Ingram family with the red heart went silent. No messages. No red receipts. Just a thread that ended mid-sentence like a conversation someone walked away from and never came back to. Diane texted once, 6 days after the party. 4 words. "You didn't have to." I read it. Didn't reply. Some sentences are their own answer. Brenda sent a longer message through Aunt Phyllis. She said Mom was devastated and not eating. She said the family was torn apart. She didn't say anything about the journal, the room, the album, the group chat, the enrollment forms, or the 214 messages. She said torn apart like it was something I'd done, not something I'd uncovered. Phyllis, to her credit, told Brenda to stop. Mom kept the house. I didn't touch the life estate. She kept her portion of Dad's savings. I didn't revoke a dime. The only thing that changed was access to Maddie and to the trust. Both now had guardrails that didn't exist before. Pat sent the formal letter to Mom's attorney. 2 weeks later, the attorney's office confirmed they would not be pursuing a visitation petition. The file was closed. Mattie started therapy on a Tuesday. She liked the therapist, a woman named Dr. Gale, who had a sand tray and a collection of tiny animals. After the 3rd session, Dr. Gale told me Maddie was remarkably self-aware for her age. She knows what happened to her wasn't right. Dr. Gale said she just needed someone to confirm it. I knew the feeling. 3 weeks later, Maddie came home from school with a new notebook. Green this time, no sticker. "My old one's full," she said. I'd kept the lavender notebook in a box on the top shelf of my closet. Next to it was one photo I'd saved from the memory book, the only one where both Maddie and I were visible. Christmas morning 2 years ago. Maddie on my lap, mid-laugh, frosting on her chin from a cinnamon roll. I was looking at her, not the camera. My mother had somehow missed it when she was editing the album, or maybe she'd left it in on purpose. I'll never know. The rest of the memory book was in the same box, sealed. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. Someday Mattie might want to understand what happened in her own time with her own eyes. One night, about a month after the party, Maddie was writing in the green notebook at the kitchen table. I asked what she was writing about today, she said. Ms. Reyes says, write what's real. What's real today? She thought about it. Then she wrote something, closed the notebook, and carried it to her backpack. Our house, she said, and spaghetti from a jar. I laughed. She laughed. The apartment smelled like garlic and cheap marinara, and it was enough. It was more than enough. Protecting your child isn't cruelty. It's the quietest, hardest kind of love. That's my story. One journal, one teacher who picked up the phone, and a boundary I should have set sooner. If someone ever tries to teach your child to fear you, believe the child. Share this, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.